Let's acknowledge NBC Radio, SVG Vincentian Newspaper, Eyewitness News, VFM, the API, and I hope I didn't leave anyone out.
Nice radio.
Nice radio. This broadcast is being brought live on NBC Radio and its Facebook, and also live via the CWSA Facebook page through ITFX. Today, we at the CWSA wish to bring the general public up to date on the severity of the water supply cases as a result of the reduction in the extension river flows. Operating critically, four of which are at critically low levels. These sources are namely Dalaway, located in the Montreal, Majorca, Montreal, and Dalaway. The Dalaway water source supplies communities from Bookament to Caliaport. Majorca supplies just about 35 communities from Mount Pleasant, Medford to Maurice Village. The Montreal system supplies approximately 53 communities from Richland Park to Diamond Estates and to parts of Diamond Village on the windward side of the island. And the Mammoon system supplies Green Hill and Lago High communities. As a result of the dry conditions, the CWSA started a water rationing schedule from the 2nd of April for communities being supplied from the Montreal water source. This resulted in 25 communities initially being without water from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. on the following day. This rationing schedule then increased to 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily, which provides a window for persons so affected to receive water. Rationing from the Dalaway source commenced April 12th. This initial rationing was for a few days, then on the 19th, rationing commenced nightly and continued for communities being supplied from this source. On May 11th, 32 communities being supplied from the Majorca source were added to the list of communities with the ration. Finally, on May 13th and 2 communities being supplied by the Montreal source were added. Water from and first, we wish to start with Engineer Odein as
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, good afternoon to all. As Ms. Ryan briefly went through, we've been doing a lot of maneuvering, and even before April, even before we start the disruptions, we've been doing a lot of maneuvering, using other systems to support others. Our Jennings system, which normally feeds the southeast coast, that has been doing a lot of work to assist Montreal. But it has come to a point now where most of our sources are critically low, where the usual maneuvers are the maneuvers that we have in place to assist one another and try to keep water a 24/7 supply to our customer. It's a bit too severe now, and we are unable to. Hence, the ration has been expanded. As of this morning, we've had to use Jennings to supply Calicut and support the Dalaway system because of the severity of the river flows in that system. As Ms. Ryan said, currently we've extended our disruption notices to nighttime and daytime, expanded to basically throughout that entire region fed by Dalaway. That's in combination with what we've been doing for the last maybe 3 weeks on the Montreal system. So it's quite a few communities that are affected, and we are working arduously to do all that we can to use all the resources available to us. But unfortunately, we are in this position where it is very difficult, and we have to be disrupting our customers quite often.
Thank you, Marco. Mr. Paul, would you like to come in now and address
Yes. First of all, let me say good afternoon to the listening public, and thank you for being here, media. I want to say that, what we are facing, this phenomenon, is not just unique to St. Vincent. We've been having this across the Caribbean, and particularly in our part of the region, the Eastern Caribbean, Grenada, St. Lucia. We are having similar challenges and have to implement strict measures for water conservation. A regional study that was done, that was looking at building resilience to climate change in the Caribbean, it highlighted that there will be a general drying trend, less overall rainfall, increases in the number of consecutive dry days, and increased prevalence of drought conditions. So this is what's happening in the region. Of course, what's driving this is climate change, in particular, global warming, the increase of surface temperatures. Some data that we have from our system specifically, Marco and Joan talked about one of our major systems being affected, that's Dalaway, that feeds about 40% of our customer base. I was looking at some data, and for the months of February, March, and April this year, we've had significant reduction in rainfall compared to the 5-year average, the previous 5 years. For example, in February, it was 74.26% reduction. In March, it was about 49% reduction. And in April, it was just about 55% reduction. So we have a reduction in rainfall, but we also have seen an increase in temperatures. Based on the data that we've collected so far, for the month of March, the temperature for March is about 2 degrees above what is average for that month. So you're seeing the compounding effect of reduced rainfall and increased temperature. And that's what's driving the low water availability. We've seen it in our stream flows as well. For example, in Dalaway, and I will just focus on Dalaway initially because of the size of that system. We had a significantly rainy January. It was an anomaly. We had a lot of rain in January. But from February to April, from the data that I have, our stream flow has been also steadily decreasing. So in February, it was about 1.54 million gallons. And April, we're seeing it being at 1.1, just about 1.1 million gallons. So a reduction of 29%. So that is what's driving, like I said, the low quantity of water that we have. And as Engineer O'Dane pointed out, our technicians have been doing their best to ration so that we can have water available, at least for some time during the day for each customer. It's a 24-hour operation. In particular, one of our systems, they have to be switching every half an hour for the entire day. So there's someone manning that system. So it's 24 hours. They've been doing a good job. Just trying to keep water available to our customers. But it's not an effort that we can do by ourselves. To get through this, we'll need everyone's cooperation and understanding, and also change in practices. I got some data just today that our consumption has not changed significantly, even though we are in the dry season, and even with rationing. Before we started to ration, because we started rationing in around April 2nd, we're seeing for March, the average consumption being just about 2.5 million gallons. Saturday, when we looked at the consumption for Saturday, that's Saturday gone, May 11th, the consumption was 2.2 million gallons. So, and that's in the height of the rationing twice per day. The phenomenon that I'm seeing happening is that when the water goes, as soon as it comes back, our behavior, we do the same things. What's highlighted as well is that during the dry season, we tend to want to use more water because it is dusty. So we want to wash our cars more. We want to water our lawns and our flowers. Some people want to even wash down their homes because of the dust. No, that's just exacerbating the problem. We need Vincentians to change the way you use water, particularly in the dry season. I had a meeting with our supervisors on Monday. We had a meeting Monday morning because it really got critical on Friday, May 10th. We were sort of managing. It wasn't, we were balancing. We had some rainy days, even within the dry spell, that were keeping the systems up. But from Friday, it got very critical. And our supervisors opined that they're still seeing people that are using hoses to wash their vehicles, wash pavements. Someone said some people are still power washing their pavements during this time. Yesterday I was driving home, and I saw someone using a hose in the public to wash their SUV. Now, our legislation gives us the authority to take measures to reduce the wastage of water if we are seeing that occurring. So they have been trying and have been doing that. Of course, we'll be sensitive. We'll speak to you first. But if the practice continues, we may have to take measures to restrict your supply in the interest of the public good. So what I'm getting at is that it takes all of us, not just the CWSA. If we are to navigate these times of low water availability, we will do our part and try to ration where we can. As the public utility responsible for water, over the years we've been implementing projects and programs to try and expand our storage and find new water sources so that we can increase the availability of the resource. But that is just one side of the coin. The next side of the coin, in order to build sufficient resilience to climate change, it requires a change in public behavior. You need to be more conservative in your use of water, because think about it, we don't produce water. We depend on the rain. That is a God-given resource. So if there's no rain, despite the infrastructure that we have, we can still have a situation where there is low water availability. But we need you to do your part as well. Be more conservative in the use of water, and try to implement some form of storage in your homes. This is not our first rodeo. We've gone through times of dryness before. We had a terrible drought in 2010. And every year we'll have periods. It may not be as prolonged, but we'll have periods where there's a dry spell and we are rationing water. And in some cases we have to deliver water to communities. But what I've found is, as we've gone through this year after year, and we've seen a lot of narrative about climate change, not just in local media, regional and international media, that's been going on for over 2 decades, we're still lagging in terms of our readiness or changing our behavior. You may go to a home and there's no container even when you come to deliver water.
Yeah.
We recommend that even if you can't afford a storage tank for your home, you can even get one of those 55-gallon blue drums and fill it with water. Always keep some water stored. Or have 5-gallon buckets of water, 1 or 2, that have water in your homes. Because you may have service line disruptions. It may not be the dry spell. It could be that we are repairing a part of our system could be a spontaneous line break. I mean, I was looking at our network. We have over 400 miles of pipeline. If you want to put that in perspective, if you were to line them up together, line them up in a line, it will span a distance from St. Vincent to Trinidad and back. And you're talking about pipe sizes from 12 inches all the way down to ½ inch. And they are all, just throughout our country. So at any point in time, you could have land slippage. You can even have lines because of their age. There's a burst in the pipe, or even the soil constriction. A soil may contract during the dry season and expand during the wet season, and then you will have breakage even from that. So the point that I'm making is have some form of storage capacity in your homes so that when there is a supply disruption, that at least you can function for 1 or 2 days. I think I will want to stop there for now. I don't know if...
We can open the floor.
I know that we are live, but persons who are here, if there are any questions that you would like for us to answer, we can respond to those at this time.
Hello, Kenton Chance of Eyewitnesses and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Can you tell us what is the forecast as far as this dry spell is concerned, and when, I don't know, but I presume that you will be in communication with the Met Office,
Right.
and even Kharkov, when
Yes.
this is likely to pass?
Yes. From the latest Kharkov report that covers April, May, and June, the forecast is that for our region, and of course this is just a forecast, that it's expected to have higher to normal rainfall, but also higher than normal temperatures. And it is saying that within that period, you may have dry days, but there's no indication as to when those dry days would be. That
How
expect that there will be some dry days within that. But the overall CARICOF, and that's Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum, for our country, our island, is that it would be more than likely higher to normal rainfall, but also higher than normal temperatures with some dry days in between. That's as close as they can get.
Are the rains expected to return at the normal time, or earlier, later? Because essentially what I'm trying to get is, when does the CWSA forecast anticipate that we pass this phase where we have to be doing this extensive sort of rationing?
Right. Well, you said when do we anticipate? We can tell you when we are hoping that we could, even within the next 2 weeks, we can have some rains. But there's no guarantee that the traditional dry season will start right on time. That's June 1st. There's no guarantee of that. So that's why we are stressing, and that's why we thought it's best to come to the public now to say that we can't tell you how long this would be. We don't have, we can't do that. I don't think there's a forecast that can tell you that with any certainty right now. So we are saying that we are preparing for the worst. We're hoping for the best, but we're preparing for the worst. That's why we want to elevate this to a level of, this is a significant challenge that we are facing. And we want the public to know what we are doing to try and alleviate the problem in terms of rationing, and we want you to also know what you can do in terms of helping, playing your part in alleviating this challenging situation.
You spoke about the long-term outlook and the likely impact of climate change. You spoke about sufficient resilience and also change in the public behavior in terms of conservation. But is the CWSA considering any additional forms or sources of water extraction? For instance, we're still largely dependent on surface water.
Yes.
I happen to know that there is a very large CWSA water source underground, pretty close to where I live. Is this something that the CWSA would be considering going forward?
You're living in the Vermont Valley, right?
In South Leeward, yes.
South Leeward, yes.
Yeah, Vermont Valley.
Okay, well, Marco is here, and he will just add some texture to what I'm saying. But yes, we are considering other sources of groundwater, water, freshwater availability, fresh water. Right now, for example, under the V project, that's the Volcano Eruption Emergency Project, that's a World Bank funded project, we are looking to construct our first solar-powered groundwater extraction system at Overland. And that is to cater for the communities of Overland and Sandy Bay. Overland, Sandy Bay, and Oya, occasioned by the volcanic eruptions that showed up the vulnerability of those supply sources that we have on the slopes of the volcano in the North Windward area. But we are looking to do groundwater exploration in the Majorca Valley and in Vermont Valley, so we can do the same thing, put in a groundwater well extraction system to augment the Dalaway supply system and the Montreal supply system. Marco can give you a little bit on how that would go. What's the progress with that?
Yes, good afternoon again. That project, it's a IAEA project. It's a atomic agency. They have a non-invasive technology that we're hoping to explore and do some exploration, some exploration where we really don't have to invest in drilling machinery and stuff like that, but we're hoping to see what's available underground in those two valleys. We've started this year. We started with some training of our staff and our water resource unit and the possibilities that the technology can achieve. And at the end of it, we should be able to get a proper synopsis of those two valleys and what's available underground. From there on, we can consider what are our options in exploring what we found.
I have just two quick questions, if I may.
Go ahead.
What is the anticipated impact of the increased number of tourism plans on demand for water? Like for instance, you spoke about last Saturday, and you said the consumption of water has not fallen, but at the same time, we have a pretty large tourism plan that we did not have this time last year. And what is CWSA putting in place to respond to the needs of the tourism industry, while at the same time ensure that there's enough water available for domestic and manufacturing?
Great. Well, one of the projects that we are doing, we are upgrading a source in that Vermont Valley areas in an area called Francois. In fact, we are using from that source currently. It actually can provide double the capacity that is required by the hotel development, referring to the Sandals Resort.
Not just
And other development, right. Right. So we have that source that we are developing. We purchased the land for the treatment plant. We're actually using it now, but we need to put in an additional treatment and storage. The water quality is very good when in the dry season, but when we have rains, we need to put in a treatment to make sure that we can deliver the quality that's required. But that system is being designed. We're hoping to start the storage tank component of that later this year, so by next year that should be fully functioning. We have also installed a storage tank at 20 Hill. It's a 250,000 gallon storage tank that's been installed at 20 Hill. So we're making those provisions for those storage.
Specifically for tourism or to augment?
Again, you take into consideration the total demand on the system, and you put in these storage tanks and the additional sources to help meet the overall demand, not just the tourism industry, but the consumers and the manufacturing, because you would understand that area too will start developing housing, would be added to it. Well, you've seen it happening in that valley as well. So it's to meet those demands. And we'll continue to respond as we see the developments unfold in the future.
Finally, just a quick question about fire hydrants. Who's responsible for the installation of fire hydrants?
The CWSA installs fire hydrants And we work in conjunction with the police, the fire department, the police, to identify the areas for the installation. And between the fire department and CWSA would do routine maintenance and inspection.
So just to be clear, is it that the police would say to the CWSA, well, we think there should be a hydrant in this place, and then you would go and install it?
Yeah, and it's a consultation with us, because you have to determine if the line size can facilitate that, and so on. So we work in tandem with the police to determine the best areas.
I understand that part. I'm just trying to understand where the initiation starts. Is it that the fire department comes and say, well, we would like a fire hydrant in such and such an area, and then you advise on the practicality of it?
Right.
Is that correct?
I think that is how that's how it goes. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And it goes, and well, Marco, and it also goes both ways as well. We can advise as to where fire hydrants can go to. Right. Mm.
Harry Shaw here, WFM. You briefly touched on you seeing persons wasting water, washing a vehicle, and you had mentioned restricting water. It is within your right to restrict water. What does that mean? Does that mean that you restrict water from a specific area or that specific resident?
That particular resident, or use the person who's misusing the water.
Okay, and besides washing vehicle and watering plants, what do you consider a waste?
Well, again, we're talking about especially in the dry season, where we have low water availability.
Yeah.
Plants, people power washing their pavements, washing down their homes, filling of swimming pools and ponds. Those things will be considered to be excessive waste around this time. And so our supervisors would, as they go about, and if they see these practices, or even members of the public, if they see those practices, they can report them to the CWSA, and we will investigate, and we will take the necessary measures. And especially during this time when we have low water availability. Of course, our first step is to speak to the individual and to encourage compliance. And if necessary, we'll have to take the measures to restrict water wastage.
Okay, and you had mentioned that you're hoping we receive rainfall within the next 2 weeks, and it might take us out of this problem that we're in now. But how long would it take us to return to normalcy in terms of CWSA having the appropriate storage and the regular usage for ventilation?
Typically, it's from past experience. It's not a long period. The rains usually start, and they usually come in abundance. But it depends on how much rain comes and where it comes. But typically, it comes in abundance from early June or late May, and we usually back up in a very very short period of time, almost immediately. But it depends on the rainfall pattern. But typically, that's been the case.
Any specific recommendations on how to treat water at this time?
Because persons may recognize the color of the water changing when it comes back. Some children or the vulnerable may be experiencing issues with their stomachs when they drink the water at this time. So is there any particular measures that need to be observed when caring or treating the water?
Yes, unfortunately, the closing and opening of valve creates a lot of, it's mostly the scouring that creates the issue. We still do our testing, and it still have the chlorination residual that is needed, but we are aware of that complaint, and I guess typically the best answer will be to boil your water if you're unsure. That's typically the safest thing to do. Anything is risky unless you know what you're doing.
Along from Suchlake, a few residents in past three shops Suchlake have said that they are having issues with these scheduled time posted for the shut-off systems, and the previous weekend, one said that the last water on Saturday and they didn't come back until Monday, so the following week, and that sort of posed an inconvenience to them. And not only that, they came back around 7, which was high time when most persons are getting ready for work and when students are getting ready to go to school. So what was the problem there?
But unfortunately, we cannot we would love to be able to do things the way that our customers want them done so that they can receive the water at their convenience. But it's not going to be possible, not within this kind of critical condition that we are going through. So what the technical section have devised is really the best case scenario to ensure that we receive water within a reasonable period of time. At this time, we are asking persons in high elevation, to higher elevation, I should say, to report to us immediately. If we say, for example, that your water would be returned to you 5 a.m. the following day, if by 6 there is no water, let us know, so that we can put systems in place to ensure that you receive some water. But we are trying. It is, you have to see the river, you have to see what we are dealing with to understand the severity of the issue. So call us and let us know where you are and when was the last time you actually received water, so that we can see how we can ensure that you receive some water within a reasonable time.
And at one point did CWSA become aware of the severity of these dry spells?
Marco?
That's the problem. Most of those mics, you don't need to move them. Just
Okay.
these ones that are from
The big ones?
As I said in the beginning, we've been doing a lot of management of the system to ensure that everybody gets some water at a time. We'll get, sometimes it will be this bad and we get a shower or two in the areas that we need it. We've been somewhat fortunate that sometimes a few weeks ago. So, but as of Friday, as of Wednesday, we got the impression that we are not getting any rainfall to help us this time, and we've had to put all the measures in place. Friday it was really bad. We continue. So it's a moving target, as to say. We will respond to it as it is now, but with no rain, and we can't predict the rain. And we're not expecting any in the next few days at least. Mm-hmm. So that's how it is. It's kind of fluid, but it's something that we have to work with every year, and we continue to put things in place and different maneuvers to ensure that customers get water.
Right, I understand that we can't predict that when we will get rainfall, but
like looking at data, can't you predict what might happen? Because this is in accordance to recent, I think it was last week when they said September, there was a huge reduction in rainfall, and the data heavily SUG met said that in that month, they recorded 73.8 millimeters of rainfall. But in the past year, it was about 239.4 millimeters. So then if CWSA, is it a case where CWSA wasn't aware of this? If at that point, did the team not realize that maybe for the upcoming year that things should be put in place to conserve water?
So the pattern tends to change. So in 1 year, as in that year, we could have a fairly dry spell at the end of the year, but the following few months, we are good. So it's difficult for us to predict and say, okay, because it started this way, it's going to continue. So it's whether it's rain, we can't say, okay, yes, it started bad, and we have to be ready and prepared, but we can't predict that, yes, it's definitely going to happen, but we always have to be ready.
I just want to add to that, since 2018, we started a concerted effort of public awareness on the need for persons to have adequate storage at their premises, whether it's home or business, and includes institutions as well. So the preparation is not just about what the guys do in the field, but it's also about how we try to educate our customers to say that customers also need to be aware. You know how many persons are in your homes, you know how many persons are in your business, and what your water usage should be like. And so when there is an issue, the CWSA the CWSA gets the information to the public as soon as we recognize that there is an issue that the public needs to be aware of. And so what we have been experiencing over the years is really quite a few persons not complying, not wanting to, not having adequate storage at their homes. I guess it comes from a culture of always having water coming through the tap. So you're thinking it will not go at a certain point, you know. And as I was saying to my GM this morning, a whole environmental awareness is necessary for all of us in our country. Not just what is happening at the Water Authority, but what is happening in our country weather-wise. You know, what is Karikoff saying? This is information that persons need to access on their own, so they're kept abreast of what can happen. I mean, it is said everywhere, climate change is real. Climate change is seeing a lot of different things that are happening in our country. When I was a little girl, the sea level was not where it is now. I remember going to the beach and you had to go all the way out, but that has changed. It is right here at our back door. Many things have changed, you know. And so we have to become more aware as people of what is happening around us and determine how we are going to respond to the changes that are taking place. And I think in this case, having that storage at home is important. And what Winsworth said earlier is also important. When we do go into communities to deliver water when there is a shortage, for whatever reason, most persons do not have adequate containers for storage of water. So, you know, all of us have to recognize where our responsibilities lie, and we have to act accordingly. Yes, please.
Speaking about responsibilities, I noticed that Pitini Carnival had posted flyer for enforced water yesterday. I'm not sure where the water is coming from, but what is the CWSA's role in this, given that we're going through such an extreme period of drought?
Well, the question would be, where is Pitini Carnival getting their water from?
Okay, so
They need to tell us.
Did you inquire?
They might go downstream and get some from the river.
Mr. Coy, I don't know if you have the data at hand, but can you give us an idea? I mean, you know, just so the public can understand what you're reading in our stories. Like the capacity of your your systems, your storage systems, and the extent to which they're impacted. So for instance, if Dalaway has a capacity of such and such, how long do you have to shut it down to bring it back up? When I say shut it down, I mean lock off the supply to certain communities to bring it back to an area, or even like in terms of storage, how much water do you really have stored, and to how long it can really last to supply the various customers at minimum usage?
Well, in our entire system, we have a total storage capacity of just about 6 million gallons. In terms of all the storage, we have about 45 storage tanks across the country, and our total capacity is about 6 million gallons. Dalaway in particular is about total storage about 2 million, just over 2 million gallons. Generally, it will take probably a day to replenish the entire storage. Based on the
Based on current river flows.
Oh.
Yeah, but based on the current river flow. Oh, okay. What is it taking us now? About 2.
Yeah, the problem is that we are still supplying water. So it's not, we're not disrupting persons for long enough where we can actually get a decent recovery in any of our system. The tank has been slowly going on, and we'll disrupt and we'll recover, and we've been doing that in the last few weeks. Now, when we say it's critical, especially in the Dalaway system, it's and the Montreal system, it's critical because we cannot disrupt customers long enough to get a decent recovery of any of these systems.
So what is about today?
So when we say it's critical, is that we've been doing a lot of juggling, we've been doing a lot of early disruption, but now it is at a point where it's critical, where these tanks barely have water. And we are trying our best to ensure that customers are supplied at some point in the day, preferably mornings and evenings when people are home and trying to get and get themselves sorted.
Mr. Cook, is there any minimum guarantee that you can give to your customers at all? Like, you know, we know things are rough, but let's say within a week we can guarantee that you will get water for at least 2 hours. Is it at all any minimum guarantee you can give?
Right. Well, again, Kenton, that's depending on the weather.
I mean, based on the current circumstances,
Well,
prevailing circumstances.
right. Because what we're trying to do, we ration for several times in a period during the day, especially on the Dalaway system. We're doing 9 to 5 and 10 to 4. So during that period, we can guarantee you right now that you should get water. If it's a case where, as happening in other countries, it gets to the point where you cannot supply based on the fact that the reservoirs are so low, then you have to look into the possibility of trucking water to some communities. Let us be reminded too that the systems that are being affected, we have 12 water sources, but only those 4 mainly are being affected. Layou, Hermitage, those on the North Lee or the North Windward, they're still holding well, and they have excess capacity. So if there's a case where we have significant water stress on those systems, and for some reason a significant portion of the communities cannot be supplied, then we have to look at something like trucking water to residents.
Are all the systems interconnected?
There's some interconnectivity, but between systems, but not all are connected to each other, if you understand what I'm saying. So you may have some interconnectivity. Dalaway from Layou, and Majorca as well. You have Jennings, interconnected somewhat with Majorca, Perseverance connected with Jennings. But you wouldn't say, for example, have Jennings and Hermitage connected, if you understand. So there's some level of connectivity within the system that are close by to each other, which helps, because right now, to help with alleviating the problem. And Jennings.
Question for our fellow citizens in the Grenadines. What's in place for them?
Right. Well, in terms of the long term, well, we are working on a project to be funded, hoping to be funded by the Green Climate Fund, where we're looking to put in solar-powered desal plants on Union Island, Mairo, and Canawan. So we are trying to get the funding proposal and the technical proposal completed so that we can send it to the Green GCF for their decision making. That process takes about a year, so we are hoping that by early 2026 we can start physical works on trying to put something more sustainable for the Grenadines. On Beckway, there is a desal plant now that's offering some solution to the issue of water scarcity, but we are hoping to expand that plant, the CWSA, expand desal production on Beckway and to do a whole island solution. But in the interim though, because they are going through a serious time of water scarcity now, we are taking water to the islands. It's a fairly elaborate exercise, but we are chartering a boat and we are going down and delivering water. We've done it 4 times so far. We're on April 3rd. We went to Beckway where we delivered 30,000 gallons. April 24th, again, we made another trip to Beckway to deliver another 30,000 gallons roughly. On April 29th, we went to Union Island and Mairo to deliver some 40,000 gallons. And yesterday, April 13th, we made another trip to Union Island and Mairo to deliver some more water to them. We're going to meet as a committee, NEMO and other relevant stakeholders, preferably this Thursday, to assess the situation again and to see what further support we would need to give to the Grenadine Islands in this time. We can't forget them. We know they are facing it harsher than on St. Vincent, and so we want to give them as much support as we can. It may be, like I said, if things escalate, it may become necessary to truck water to places in St. Vincent too, and so we want to plan and prepare for that. Right now, it's not absolutely necessary. We are able to feed most communities, at least for some part of the day. We appreciate that because it's a hydraulic system. I want to just touch that point because that's a concern that folks have. If you're in the lower lying areas, when the water is turned on, you may get water before those at the higher elevation, right? So we may say that the water is coming back at 5 o'clock, and you're at a higher elevation and you don't see it at 5 o'clock. You see it maybe like an hour later. And you say, well, they say they turn it on at 5. How come I ain't get none? It's just a matter of hydraulics, you know. If you drink your juice from a straw, you can see what I mean. It could come. So those are. But what we want to do though is that in those communities where you're having a challenge, because it is possible that communities at a higher elevation, when we say we're turning on water, you don't get water, because what happens, just human nature, whenever the water goes, people at the lower elevation say water come back, I'm going to fill up everything. So they start to fill up everything in the house, all the drums, all the pots, all the pans. And by the time the line is pressurized, it's time to shut it off again. So you may be at a higher elevation and you're not getting any water. In those cases though, what I want you to do is to call the CWSA. Don't go on Facebook and post a notice and say, me ain't get water for 3 days. 3 days after. Call the CWSA one time. You ain't see it when it's supposed to come back. Call me. Joan has the numbers. Well, you can call us at 4562946, and I want to get the WhatsApp number.
It's 4940933.
4940933. Sometimes you don't keep those numbers in the head anymore because they're in this fast phone. But take that number, though. I want the public to hit that number, 4940933. Because what happening, people don't make phone calls anymore. So people prefer to either put a Facebook notice out or WhatsApp. So I want you to take the WhatsApp notice. You can take a picture and send it if you have a particular problem. But my experience is that tell us immediately. Water's supposed to come back at a certain time. You didn't see it in a day. Call the CWSA. It could be that we can do an adjustment on the line to make sure that you get water. Because that issue happens where people make a run on the system, we call it. So you may not get. So tell us so we can make an adjustment. It could be that you have a localized situation. Your meter may be blocked. We've had that situation too as well. Someone called and said, me get water in days, I'll bring the water. When you go, it's a block at the meter. So let us know if you are in that situation. Or if it is that we can't solve the problem technically, we just have to truck water to you. And if we have to do that, make sure that you have a storage container. So I have to bring it for you. But it's just the nature of the situation. Again, we just want to say, we can't do it by ourselves. Let me be very honest with you. It will take a collaborative effort. We are trying what we can to do the best, to put in the best technical solution. We depend on a resource that is not under our control, but we also depend on you, our customers, to inform us, to let us know when you have a problem, and also to be prepared in terms of having some storage capacity. So if we have to deliver water to you, you can receive that water, or even to make your home more water secure. In the future. And this is not just for the dry season. Remember, we have the wet season, the rainy season coming up. And there could be service disruptions. So what we are saying here is not just for the dry season. I want you to get that as well. We are a vulnerable country. We have, where we are, probably one of the most vulnerable countries in the world. We are exposed to cyclones. We have a volcano. And now with climate change, we can have dry conditions. So as a people, we have to get more resilient, all of us, the authority and you as a customer as well, so that we can sustain the impacts of climate change. Thank you. Any more questions?
For persons at home who are looking to expand their water storage supply, are there recommendations for doing that? Because I guess I've learned that there are proper and improper ways of doing that. Like it needs, if you have a tank, it needs to be at a certain elevation to be pumped into the house. Sometimes people may know that yes, I may need to expand my storage capacity, but can the CWSA give some guidance in terms of how and what persons can use to do it properly?
Right. We can give some guidance if required. Usually the plumbing, the on-site plumbing is in the realm of private plumbers who have a lot of them have the technical expertise to do so. But if someone calls and said, oh, I want to have an idea of what to buy, what size storage tank, we can give you some guidance on that, as to what tank would be used, would be appropriate for your home, and what are some of the things that you can do when you're installing your tank to ensure that you don't have cross-contamination. Let me explain what that means. Is like you can put in what you call a non-return valve. You need to put in a non-return valve so that the water from your tank don't go back into the water supply system. So those little things we can tell you that you can do, and we might be able to point you in the direction of a good plumber that can help to install that for you.
You had mentioned that if things get even more severe, you might implement a trucking system. Would that be free or at an extra cost?
No, well, when we have to truck it.
Free to who? When you say free for who? Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's water is a public is a need, is a critical resource. So it now moves in the realm of us delivering it in the interest of public good, of the public good. So
I would like to. Any more questions? I'd like to take this opportunity to appeal to institutions, government institutions, to please keep an eye on your usage and the taps. At the end of the day, at the end of the work day, ensure that all taps are closed. If there are leaks, report them to the appropriate agency for an immediate fix. This is not a time when we could turn a blind eye. I am expecting that all institutions of government would take this seriously and ensure that at the end of each break period, for the schools in particular, that all taps are closed, and at the end of the workday, that everything is locked down tight so that there is no wastage overnight, because that can really drain the system, as Marco would tell you. That can really drain the system, yes.
Long time. And not everybody will take the initiative to say, let me look for a number and try to call CWSA.
yeah.
Thank you. But I have to say though, and it's like a plug for our people, over the years, we have had that excellent relationship with the public, where they would call to say that there is a leak here and there's a leak there and so on. And if you don't go fix that leak within a time they think, they will call you back and let you know, in no uncertain term. So we thank you, but we have really over the years have that kind of rapport with our public, and we want to encourage them to continue to call us and let us know where problems exist.
Storing barrels of water is also important. Do you have barrels available for someone if they want to buy?
No, that's not within the realm of the CWSA.
Yeah. But you could, I mean, we are very good at recycling. I see a lot of the blue barrels around. People have them. I think those are import goods from overseas. Yeah, so I think those are, when you import, you can keep those barrels. I think those are very useful. They're about 50 gallons.
55.
Yeah, and in extreme emergencies, because it's recommended, CDC says that you can live survive on 1 gallon of water per day in an emergency for basic sanitation and for drinking. And this any warmer climate, you could increase it. We normally recommend to send the public 5 gallons per person per day, right? You can survive on that. I mean, you can do that if need be. So if you have a 50-gallon drum of water, that's 10 days.
For Christmas cards, we recommend overseas they send the plastic rather than the paper.
There we go. And we're going to put out an infomercial video to show you how you can turn one of those plastic barrels into a water tank. We're actually working on that right now, because we realize that not everybody could afford the irregular black tanks as we see it, but I sure most people can get their hands on one of those plastic barrels, and we have a video that will show you how to turn that into a water tank.
And I think this is also the time for us to be a little bit more observant where the leakage in our toilet facilities are, where that is concerned, because sometimes you're not hearing anything, but there is that the water is just coming down quite easy. So we need to make those kinds of observations, look through to see where leaks could possibly be in our home. If you have a tap that's not working properly, this is the time when you fix it. You know, when we are washing dishes, we kind of like to leave the pipe running. You know, you wash something, the pipe is running, and then you rinse and so on. So we're saying be a little bit more conservative in your use of water, especially those persons who are from the Dalaway, Montreal, Majorca, and the those communities. We want you to really exercise strict conservation practices within the home itself. Look for leaks. Look to see where you have to remedy situations so that you can have more water for you to use. Is there any other? No? Well, I just want to thank you, the media, for coming by. I want to thank NBC Radio, ITFX, for getting this information out to the public immediately as we speak. And for those of you who would be putting this information out, I want to thank you for coming. And as Winsbert said earlier, it is not just a CWSA issue, it is something that concerns us all. So the more information that goes out to the public, the better it would be. And please, I want to thank those persons who are listening. And I know that as a result of this, you would understand the severity of the situation that we are in, and that you will take measures to ensure that you practice the strictest conservation methods that you can. So thank you again for being here, and thank you for listening.